Welcome to Cultured, the podcast about everything fermenting with your host, Natalie Marin. So today I am sharing a recipe that a lot of you guys actually asked me to share. And that is my Koffucha recipe, and that is fermented coffee kombucha coffee. And this is it. Looks delicious, doesn't it? Okay. I really hesitated making this. I am way more a coffee fan than a tea fan. I mean, I don't mind a good cup of tea, but I must have my coffee. And my coffee must always be hot and bitter. No sugar, no milk, black, boiling hot coffee. And as my mother says, you must still feel the burn going down your throat. It must be that hot. It must just burn a little bit going down the back of that throat. And I agree, there's nothing worse than cold coffee. So fermented coffee is cold, sweet coffee. And it's not quite something that had my interest. But I thought one day, you know what? More and more people are doing it. Maybe there's something to it. Let me just give it a try. So I made up the recipe. And I did my first batch, and a week later, I was addicted. I was sold on the Koffucha train. My family is sold on the Koffucha train. It is more popular than kombucha now in my family, and this is our number one beverage to go to in the mornings with breakfast. Okay, so how did I do it? First, I'm going to take you through how I started it, how I did my first batch. So obviously when I did my very first batch, I didn't have a Koffucha SCOBY, because where would I have gotten a Koffucha SCOBY? First of all, I mean, it's not a very commonly fermented drink here in South Africa. So I had to start somewhere. So I used a standard black tea kombucha SCOBY because it's very similar in sort of flavor profile and caffeine, etc., etc. So I took a standard cup of starter liquid and a pellicle, and I used that as my starter for the Koffucha. This is a 2.8 liter or a 1 gallon bottle. There we go, isn't she beautiful? And I always use the ones with taps, because I do continuous fermenting. But we'll go through, if you don't do continuous fermenting, what you can do. But if you do continuous fermenting like I do, then it's nice to have a nice glass bottle with a tap. So because it's a 2.8 liter, I needed to brew a couple of pots of coffee. Let's talk coffee. Please, we're not doing freeze-dried. We're not doing instant. We're not doing any chicory blends. We're doing proper coffee. So that means taking your beans, grinding them up, and putting them in a filter coffee machine. So I'm not too sure what they would call it overseas, but for us in South Africa, we call it filter coffee machines, but it's your standard drip filter machine. The jug of mine takes a liter of coffee, or 4 cups. I have a 4-cup coffee machine. And in my initial brew, because I was just using a standard cup measurement of starter tea and a pellicle, I needed to make 3 pots of coffee to fill up a 2.8 liter or 1 gallon size bottle. And I made it like I normally do. So I made it the standard strength I normally do in my filter coffee machine. So that is 1 scoop. So your coffee usually comes with a scoop, and the scoop is usually a tablespoon measurement. So 1 tablespoon measurement or 1 scoop per cup. So per 1 liter of coffee, it's 4 tablespoons of ground coffee. So you make that. So let me just go over that again. For 1 liter of coffee, it's 4 tablespoons of ground coffee. So I did that. I brewed my coffee. And then I added sugar, which I never do to my coffee. So I took the coffee and I put it in a clean and sterilized jar, or just enough to, and I left just enough space at the top to put my starter liquid. So I just brewed my 3 pots, poured it in, left enough space at the top for my starter liquid, put in my sugar. My initial brew was 2 cups, which is very sweet. So if you like really sweet coffee, 2 cups of coffee is 2 cups of sugar is more than sufficient enough. I usually use brown sugar, but white sugar is fine. Use whatever sugar you normally use when you brew kombucha. So I put 2 cups of sugar in, I stirred it, dissolved the sugar, covered it up, and then I left it to cool down. When it had cooled down to room temperature, only then did I add my pellicle and starter liquid. So only then did I add my SCOBY, my black tea SCOBY. And I left it for 10 days because it's an initial brew and it wasn't that much starter liquid. A cup of starter liquid to a gallon takes a little bit longer. So I left it for 10 days. I tasted it. Mind blown at how delicious that was. And now I make kombucha every week. And my top up formula is I obviously bottle the kombucha. When I bottle the kombucha, sorry, the Koffucha, not the kombucha. Well, it's coffee kombucha. So when I bottle it, this is the size bottles I use. So you can see it's just a standard, I think it's a 330 ml bottle. I don't add sugar. So unlike when I'm doing an F2 or a second ferment on the kombucha where you flavor it, because you don't need to flavor Koffucha. It's got such a strong, beautiful coffee taste. You don't need to flavor it. But if you want to, we'll discuss that in a minute. So you don't need to flavor your Koffucha. I don't even add sugar because it's already so sweet. When I put the initial 2 cups of sugar in, I didn't want to add more because it was still, after 10 days, it was still fairly sweet. So I just poured it in here, bottled it, left it for like 2-3 days, and then I could start drinking it, just to allow some carbonation to kick in. So that is very carbonated without me adding more sugar, so you don't need to add additional sugar. Flavoring, if you do want to do an F2 and you do want to add flavoring, may I recommend you look at something that is very complementary to coffee flavor. So like vanilla, if you have any proper vanilla bean or vanilla pods, please don't use vanilla essence because vanilla essence has preservatives in and an alcohol base, and that will kill off the fermentation process. So you're actually killing off your brew and you're killing off the good bacteria if you try to add a vanilla essence or a vanilla extract. So please don't do that. If you want to make a vanilla flavor, I recommend trying to get hold of actual vanilla pods and putting that in the bottle as a flavorant. And anything that, if you like your flavor coffees, you know what you want to add. Maybe like a bit of a butterscotch flavor, make some sugary butterscotch or something like that. I don't know. If you do flavor your kombuchas, let me know in the comments what you've picked and how you've done it. Me personally, I prefer it to taste like coffee. Really good fermented coffee, slightly sour, slightly tangy, but mind-blowingly delicious. Really good. But if you do like to flavor, please let me know in the comments. Maybe you'll say something that's super inspiring and I'll give it a try. One of these days, I am thinking of getting some vanilla pods and giving a vanilla coffee a try, see how that comes out. Okay, so once you've brewed that first batch, you can go one of 2 ways. You can do a continuous fermentation, which is how I do it. So basically, I leave about 800 ml of liquid in there, or just under, because it'll come up to where the tap is there. So below the tap, that leaves approximately 800 ml, or just under a liter of water, liquid. And I just leave that as my continuous starter liquid. And so that means I just need to brew 2 more pots of coffee. I leave it to cool down to room temperature. And only when it's at room temperature, please guys, if it's too hot, you're going to kill off your starter tea, and you've just nurtured and created this Koffucha starter tea. So you don't want to do that. So when it is cooled down, Well, actually, first, when it's really hot, I recommend stirring in sugar so it dissolves, because it's a continuous and you already have a fair amount of starter liquid. You only need to, going forward, if you're doing as much as I am, I do 1.5 cups of sugar. So that works out to be 3/4 cup of sugar per liter of coffee. And that is still very, very sweet. You don't need to make it sweeter than that. In fact, it's so sweet it continues on into the F2 without having to add any more. F2, second fermentation. For those who don't know, when I say F2, I'm talking about second fermentations. So you don't have to add more sugar. 3/4 a cup of sugar per liter is sufficient. So that if you have less or a smaller bottle and you only have like a liter bottle, 3/4 cups. If you have 2 liters, 1.5 cups, so forth and so on. And then I just do that. I add the sugar to the coffee, I let it cool down, pour it in, cover it up, wait a week, 7 days, and she's ready to bottle again. So every 7 to 10 days, she's ready to bottle. I live in a hot, humid area. My fermentation time is very fast. In the middle of summer, it can be as close as 5 days. So my recommendation to you is, after a week, like you would have done with your kombucha, just taste, little bit until it reaches the right tanginess. If it gets too sour, you don't want, and it's unpleasant, you can't drink it. So don't be afraid to test it along the way. Even after 5 days, start taste testing it. What does it taste like? Does it taste fermented? Does it have that tang? And once you're happy with the flavor that you're getting, you can then bottle it and brew your next batch. Record your times of how long it took. Make a note of what the weather was, what time of year it was, etc., because you'll probably be changing those fermentation times during the course of the year, especially if you're doing continuous fermentation. If you're not doing continuous fermentation and you feel you can only stomach Koffucha once every now and then, because it is very rich compared to kombucha. Kombucha, I can drink a lot of kombucha. Yum. I've been drinking a lot of rooibos kombucha lately. It's been my go-to. I've actually been thinking of swapping out my rooibos with my black tea kombucha, because my black tea is in a much bigger bottle. And I'm going through rooibos way faster than I am my black tea at the moment, because I have been drinking so much Koffucha as well. But the Koffucha is much more rich and it can be a little bit harder on your stomach. So my recommendation is, if you can't handle that richness of the coffee on your stomach, which a lot of people may struggle with, then consider doing a SCOBY motel instead of a continuous brew. Exact same as you would a kombucha SCOBY. You just get a sterilized bottle. So this is one of my rooibos SCOBY motels. So you would pour some in here. It could be 1/2 to 3/4 with a pellicle. Make sure it's covered. You could put a cloth over it, cover a cloth over it. You feed it from time to time. You just look after it. If the pellicles get too much, because they do grow beautiful, healthy pellicles as well, you can take them out. You can dehydrate them, eat them, whatever you do. Throw them in the compost, because new pellicles will obviously constantly keep forming. And when you are ready to do your Koffucha again, you just follow the original recipe that I took you through. But instead of using a black tea SCOBY, you're going to be using an actual Koffucha SCOBY. For those of you, if you are in South Africa and you're watching this video, I do have some Koffucha SCOBYs that are a couple of generations old already, available for sale. You can WhatsApp it to me or send me a WhatsApp. I'll leave my WhatsApp number in the description below. So pop me a WhatsApp and then you'll see I have a catalog there of my SCOBYs. So I have black tea, green tea, coffee, and rooibos SCOBYs currently available. So that is something you're interested in. Instead of going through the whole black tea process, I can send you a Koffucha SCOBY ready to go. And then yes, give it a go, give it a try, and tell me what you think. Are you as addicted as I am? And let me know if you're trying any flavors. If there's anything I didn't cover or that you are not sure of, please feel free to ask in the comments, because sometimes I just say stuff in my head that I know from knowledge, and I often forget that because I know things, that doesn't mean you know them. But because I know them, it doesn't always occur to me to tell you. So if there's something you want me to speak more on or clarify, or just have a better understanding of it, please do feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will do that in a follow-up video for you. Okay, so next up in the next episode, I know this is a short one because Koffucha is short and sweet and delicious. It's really basic. If you want to, as well, if you want to do a full kombucha course, let me know, or just check my link in the comments. I do have a kombucha making course on Udemy, and I will got the link there so you can go and check it out. But now next week, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite kombucha recipes, and that is a hooch booch radler. Sounds like a mouthful, but it is one of my favorites. So every year I live in a part of the country where all the farmers have grapefruits growing ripe on their farms, but they're not grapefruit farmers. So there's always an abundance of grapefruits. And I generally find myself with piles and piles of grapefruit because I love grapefruit. And I tend to make marmalade and pudding and all sorts with the grapefruit. But I also can the grapefruit juice. Because it's highly acidic, it cans very well. And during the course of the year, I use that juice to make hooch booch radler. Or a radler hooch booch. That's the actual term. A radler hooch booch. So what that is I take kombucha and I take the grapefruit juice. So when you ferment a cider or cider style drink with a citrus like grapefruit, it is called a radler. And so I make a cider style radler using kombucha and grapefruit juice. And it's one of my favorite, most refreshing beverages to make. I will make it now in the winter because it does take 3 months to brew. And I will then, by the time spring and summer comes, I have a refreshing cider to drink during those hot months, hot summer months. So if that is something that you're interested in, it is, content warning, it is an alcoholic beverage. It can contain a lot of alcohol. So I don't recommend anyone under the age of 18 experimenting and making it. But if you are an adult, you're a responsible adult, and you brew responsibly and drink responsibly, and you enjoy a good radler cider, join me next week, and I'm going to take you through the process and how to take your kombucha and use it to make exactly that. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know in the comments if there's anything more you'd like to know or anything specific you'd like me to speak about. I always read my comments. I do apologize. Sometimes it's delayed, but I always read my comments. I make up my recipes. I'm a crazy kitchen scientist. I make up my recipes. This is my way of record keeping those recipes. If you found someone else has been doing something similar, let me know, because I literally make the shit up and I post it. But sometimes I could better my methods. And if you know someone else who's done something similar and has got a better method, or method that you feel is a better way of doing it, please share it with me. I love learning. And it's one of the reasons why I make up all these things and experiment and then share it with you guys. So let me know in the comments if there's anything like that, if there's anything specific you want me to discuss, if there's something I forgot to mention in the process as well. Let me know. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, stay well and goodbye for now.